Welcome, everyone, to Sister Science. Today, we're going back to a Sister Science healing story. And the friend I have with me here today is Corinne Sato. And we're going to go back to the healing journey and all of sort of the cycles, the patterns, and the ways which we come right into experimentation and inquiry with our own patterns and stories, and then the ways we grow from them and learn from them. And I'm super excited. We just kind of had a pre-conversation. We got ourselves a little bit jazzed up there and we had to stop and save the good stuff for right now. So, welcome.
Hi, Jill. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I want to help our audience understand right where you come from. And I do have a little bit of a introduction, if that feels like the right word to say. So, your healing journey's been kind of anything but linear. It comes from a childhood with migraines and how you moved into bylaw and first responder services, and that sort of amplified the headaches, and how then these healing modalities started to weave into your life as a way of helping yourself support yourself through this journey. And now it feels like you do everything: dance, yoga, aquafit, you're studying acupuncture, you have your own podcast, Connecting with Corinne. And at the heart of everything, there's just like, it feels like there's a core piece of the story that it doesn't ever have to be perfect, but it's authentic and it's joyful and it's really embodied. Now,
Mhm.
how does that sound?
No, that sounds amazing.
Okay, so let's dive in. Can you take us back to the beginning? Can you talk to us about where this all started for you?
Well, we could talk a little bit about the migraines first. So when I was about 13, I started getting migraines. I remember the first one I had, I was at Camp Chief Hector. I was a camper at the time, and yeah, I just ended up not, I guess, you're stressed out. You're kind of in this whole camping environment, and at 13, you're at the camp for 2 weeks. And we're not sleeping well. We're eating camp food. So it's not the best food. Like, it's good food, but it's not like the most healthy food. And your sleep patterns are all over the place. And you're sleeping in teepees at the time, and it was amazing. But yeah, I think it was the summer. I just ended up getting a migraine, and I just remember eating, like, we did this whole reverse dinner thing. So at the camp they had dessert first, and then we would have our main meal and then a salad. Well, I ate the dessert. I got so sick and I started like just vomiting everywhere. So the camp counselors took me to the little medical infirmary and I said, like, I'm not feeling well at all. I'm feeling dizzy. I'm feeling really sick. And so one of the nurses looked at me and he said, okay, I think you actually have a migraine. So they put me in this little bunk bed. It was down like in this basement of this one building. And they just put me in a cold, dark room. They said, okay, just chill out, just chill. So did that and I slept it off. And a couple days later, I felt fine. I was great again. Didn't really think anything of it. And then after the camp, I think it was probably about a couple weeks later, I remember we went to, my parents and I went to Costco and they had like this hot dog thing. And I was a pig at 13 and I was eating like 3 hot dogs. I'm starving. So I ate 3 hot dogs. And I just remember going into Costco and trying out some samples, and there was a brownie, like a lady giving us brownies. And I remember eating half the brownie, but my face went numb. So half my face went numb. So it was like almost like a stroke, right? Like except everything else was fine except for my face, and half my face went numb. And I went to my mom and she's like, "Why do you have like half brownie like on your face?" Like there was brownie on my face. Like I was kind of slurring words on the side and I'm like, "I don't feel so good." And I remember we were going to that night a WWE wrestling event, and so we went and it was so loud. And I just remember that evening going to bed and it was like the whole stadium was just running through my head again and again and again. And I got dizzy. I got sick. I couldn't keep anything down. I started vomiting. I remember my parents had to take me to the hospital because I just couldn't keep anything down. And yeah, that turned out to be migraines. So
Wow.
I had my period when I was about 10 years old. And I don't know, I think it was just maybe hormonal changes. I wasn't on birth control at the time. slowly started getting onto birth control, thinking that could help with the migraines. Um, and I don't know how that, like, how it all started. And then throughout my high school and college years and university years, I found when I got stressed, I got migraines. But I found if I didn't sleep well, I would get migraines. And then later on, I found out like if I was really dehydrated, I get migraines. So
Right.
I think it's like just a combination of things. Um, but it took me a really long time to understand like the whole migraine journey. Um,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So that's kind of how it all began.
Right. And it definitely sounds like it's one where your body's giving you sort of like really immediate feedback to, I don't like that.
Yeah.
I don't like that. And the way you're even describing it is that you've done everything from the foods, the environments, the yeah, like the stress, the lack of sleep, like there's lack of hydration. There's certain things that you've noticed when your body goes, I don't like that, and it cues you with a migraine, which is a pretty loud, clangy signal.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's interesting too because, you talk about migraine symptoms and everyone's going to be different with migraine symptoms. I have pretty much experienced anything and everything, like classic textbook from like I said, half the face being numb. I've seen spots. So like my eyes have gone like you're reading a book or reading something, and then all of a sudden you just see these like dark spots. I've had the auras. I've had, like all the pretty much everything, anything and everything that has been written about it, I probably have had. Not
Yeah.
necessarily each time, but throughout my life, I'm like, oh, I know I'm like all of a sudden it's like I see dark spots. I'm like, am I going blind? I'm like, oh crap, maybe it's a migraine. And then I won't feel the pain right away. An hour later, the pain comes. I'm like, oh, here we go. Like I joke I was a vampire. Like I couldn't, I'd wake up in the morning and all of a sudden it was like, well, I I would be so yeah, like I wouldn't be able to handle the light. So I'm like, okay, dark cloud. Like everything has to go dark. I'm not leaving the bed. And I'm one of those people with migraines who just has to hide. I hide. I sleep. I'm a vampire.
Yeah. Well,
Like
you
I
just
can't
mentioned,
have light. I need everything dark. I need everything cold. And I'm just hiding for a day or about a day. I sleep throughout the day and then I'll wake up and then I'll be okay. Have had tried different medications, different things. Um,
dark, cold, and do you also have to be still?
yeah, yeah.
I want to bring some Ayurveda in here because you're just fascinating me right now. But if Ayurveda sees everything on a continuum, and you've learned that, oh, you also mentioned hydration. So there's like this idea of like water coming
And
into.
electrolytes, because I think
Yeah.
it's the lack of like the electrolytes and salt. Because here's an interesting one. I Over the years, I've realized now that when a day before a migraine, and sometimes you'll get like kind of pre-migraine symptoms. So you get pre-migraine symptoms, you get post-migraine symptoms, which is awesome for those who are migraine sufferers, right? So the pre-migraine symptoms can be irritability, you can be really kind of bitchy, and you're like, what the hell is going on? It's almost like PMSing almost
Yeah.
to some degree. But for me, I find that like I need sugar and salt. And it's like all of a sudden, like I just crave the sugar. 2 seconds after I have like chocolate, I'm like, I need pickles. It's like you're on pregnancy, like the pregnancy hormones go like, wait, and I've never been pregnant, but from what I've heard, it's like
Yeah.
sugar, salt, sugar, salt, sugar, salt. And it's like my body's preparing. It's like you are gonna be out for 2 days, or like you're not gonna be eating for a day. So this is what the body's preparing for. So it's the sugar, salt, a little bit of water, and then the next day or like a day and a half, the migraine hits.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's the Ayurveda talks about everything on this spectrum and
Mhm.
qualities. And the
Yeah.
qualities that you've listed as these are the qualities that support me and help me: darkness, coldness, stillness, hydration. And those ones usually offset the qualities of darkness and light. So this quality of light, whether it's sunlight or just being like light and airy, not grounded, sort of a little bit spinny. Our routines aren't grounded, like things that are just feeling really sort of light. They're not landed.
Mhm.
Hot. This can be people who are pitta people. They are really driven, really going. We burn hot. We burn fiery. It could also be people who live in pitta countries or pitta climates. We are pitta season here, just basically July and August.
Yeah.
But we run hot. Mobile, mobility, just like this idea of like when we're go, 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 our body will demand stillness. And we can feel that even as we tip into September, how the body's going, please give me some more stillness. I just need to some routines to anchor me. And then dryness. So if I take light, hot, mobile, and dry as those are aggravating qualities, you've automatically given yourself the antidote to those qualities, cold, dark, still, hydrating.
Hmm.
It's amazing that you can see that. So then Ayurveda says, okay, how could you give yourself those qualities proactively
Yes.
so that this pattern wouldn't continue? Now, I think that starts to take us into these next questions. Like, what have you been finding? What have you
Well,
been
actually,
finding on your journey that starts to bring balance to this pattern?
well, it's actually just so funny that we're talking about this with Ayurvedic. So, I'm just starting TCM and acupuncture, and when you talk about like the heat, the fire, it's like the excess of the yang, right?
Yes,
So in Chinese medicine, we talk about the yin and
yes,
yang, and the yin is the darkness, the stillness, the cold, right? It's like if we look at like the sun is yang,
yes,
heat's yang, all of this. So it's either an excess of yang or not enough or in a
yin.
deficiency of yin. So we're slowly starting to learn this stuff, but it's like, oh my God, like I
It's
just learned
blowing your
this.
mind.
So it's kind of
So
cool how
cool.
both how like Ayurvedically you're talking about like the pitta and how like I'm over like you excess on the pitta or you excess on the yang, then
Yes,
the body is like I need the yin. I need
yes.
I need the cold. I need the stillness. I need oh my God, like woo.
Blow my mind. And this is
Well,
it,
it's on
right?
both of
Is
us.
that the yin yang symbol is meant to be held in balance. And I say this like I'm preaching it. We need to hold the feminine, the yin, in equal regard to the masculine. We need to hold our sister science in equal regard to our Mr. Science. We need to regard the creativity, the flow, the darkness, the chaos, the emotions the same way we regard the linear, the data, the science-based, the rigid, structured stuff of the masculine. And we live in a world that really regards the young, really regards this masculine, and yet you've got this body saying to you, please, please give me some of that yin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Right? So it's so cool. Like this is just yeah, I love this.
Okay. So you took yourself from that kind of childhood where you had some this headache thing, this migraine thing is starting to direct your life, starting to demand your time. And if you don't give it time, it's taking it anyway.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, I kind of like I would push through university, I pushed through work. Um, and what ended up happening was I worked, you alluded it to, I worked at bylaw for a little bit, and I did. I worked with the city of Calgary as a bylaw officer for about 3 years. And I just got to that point in my life where I'm like, this is not my career. And you push, you push, you push, and eventually, bless you,
You-
you get yeah, there was an analogy today that my instructor was talking about, and she was saying like you push so much that you're going to end up like getting that resistance back, right? People are going to
Mhm.
be pushing back. So for myself, I'm like, hey, the goal was I wanted to become a police officer. That was the goal. The universe had different ideas, and which is fine. But with the bylaw, there was a lot of pushing, and I always question the whys. Like, we're telling people to do stuff, and I'm like, well, I'm going to tell somebody to do something. They're going to be like, well, why? Well, it's in the bylaw. But like, under what bylaw do I have authority, and how can I explain this in a nice way? And I would always kind of push back with my bosses and say, like, well, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Like, what is the purpose of this bylaw? So I can understand, so I can explain it. However, when you're in an authoritative environment and you're asking the why, they start to say, well, you're now questioning my authority. And it's like, that's not really my intention, but sometimes those intentions come off as something different. And I was considered the black sheep. I was considered the person who would just push back all the time. And it got to that point where there was just so much conflict, that I just felt like I didn't belong there anymore. And eventually I ended up going from full time. I worked a little bit of part time just to go back to school to do journalism. And then they came back to me and they said, you have to go full time. And I said, I'm still in school, so I'm peacing out. I'm peacing out, guys. But during that time, again, my body was fighting me back. So there was a time where I started to notice signs and symptoms of depression. So I had gone through depression um, a few years earlier when I was in university. I was away living in England for a little bit and I loved the experience, but I did go through a depression. I think it was due to like a lot of things, again, stress, the seasons. Uh, England is very rainy and damp and cold, and I think it was too much yin and too much dampness and too much cold at the time, especially in winter. And yeah, my body was just like, nope, we're now going down that spiral mentally, physically, emotionally, everything. And so when I got out of that, I could kind of see signs and symptoms of that as well. And so when I was working by law near the end, I could start to see the signs and symptoms of
Yeah.
depression, which is, like certain songs that trigger me to make me sad would start coming in my head, um, starting to become withdrawn, right? And like, again, irritable and more migraines are happening. So the body again was fighting. And I'm like, okay, I'm pushing. I'm trying to be a bylaw officer. There's a lot of things that are, there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of resistance right now. And I would just keep pushing to be like, I'm stubborn. I gotta do this career. And it got to a point where I ended up having to see a psychologist and a couple people recommended yoga. So that's how I got back into yoga. So I'd done yoga way before, done a lot of Ashtanga, and I liked it. But let me tell you, if you make me do a down dog or any vinyasas, I was going to lose my crap. Do it like when I was in my mental and emotional state of this depression, and I just said like, if anyone makes me do a down dog, I'm gonna lose my crap. I can't do it. And a friend of mine said, no, go to the hot yoga studio. So there was a Bikram class, this Bikram studio in Calgary South at the time, and it was right near work. Did the 26 and 2. And Jill, it changed my life. I needed something where I needed to be told what to do, how to do it. And I just needed that A type of coming into class, I needed that repetitiveness,
Structure.
the structure, the sequence. And I didn't need an instructor to tell me like one day, oh, we're gonna do like a fun flow and then another flow another day. I needed the structure. I just needed to meditate. There were so many times when I was in that hot room just like crying, but it just was so healing for me that the structure and I know with yoga that kind of yoga is kind of
It's not though, because it is like even at the local alchemy studio, the classes right now they're adding more of are the Hot 26 classes
Mhm.
because that structure is serving a really big purpose in a world that feels like the structures are falling apart. So this
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. So it's sometimes nice to have that structure and just to know because then you can go into these poses. You're like, okay, it's okay. I know the poses. I know the way that things are happening. So it's just kind of nice to have that. And then you just work through that. And it's like you have that permission of like, if I have to melt on my mat and just not do anything, then it's okay too.
And yeah. Yeah, because
So,
this is the thing with yin and yang, right? Is that we need both. We need the structure of the yang, the structure of that masculine side, so that the feminine has a safe place to flow. And what
yes.
you're talking about is that you could reliably hit this class again and again and again, and you were falling, you were putting yourself into a reliable container. I know what pose is coming next. I
Mhm.
know that they're going to do it twice on each side. I know that they're going to hold it for a minute. I know that it ends after 26 poses. I know that it's going to take whatever, 75 minutes, 65 minutes, whatever the class time was, but you know these things. And then you can take yourself there and allow the emotions to flow.
Yes.
and
Yes.
heal. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the balance, is that it provided the structure for your flow. So speak to that. Talk to about you became a Bikram teacher. You became a Hot 26 teacher.
I did. So after when I fell in love with the Hot 26 and 2, I decided it was like a couple of years after I'm like, I want to do the teacher training. Like I want to teach this yoga. At the time, I couldn't afford Bikram. And he was still teaching and he was still in California. But at the same time, it was before all the stuff that was happening with Bikram, but there were some rumblings. And I just honestly, I didn't want to be bullied either. And I mean, I think there's something to be said about that. So I just felt like I would go and try a different um teacher training. So there was a lady named Kim McMullen. She taught Hot 26 and 2. She's been at Alchemy. I don't know where she is right now, but she was teaching and she taught the Hot 26 and 2 and she taught a Baron Baptiste style. And we had the two choices. So for myself, I said, okay, I'll do the 26 and 2. Authentically though, it didn't feel good in my body because I honestly just was like, this isn't coming from that pure place. And I hate to like, and you say what you will about Bikram, but I just wanted to like I felt like it was unauthentic because it wasn't coming from him. And I don't know, like, yeah. And I don't and I because I feel like he was the one who like he had created it and now you find out like he kind of stole it from somebody else, right? But he kind of create like in our what we were told at the time, like he created this 26 and 2 and I just felt like, oh, like I really kind of wanted to learn it from the source as opposed to like secondhand. And then when Kim gave us like a script, Bikram has a script as well, which he patented and copywritten and all the things. So Kim gave us like a modified version of it. And to memorize a script, it was interesting because I felt like, you tell people to do this, do that, do this, do that, but you don't know how to feel it in your body.
Mm.
And some of the things that like, we're cueing in Hot 26 and 2, over the years I learned, they say like lock your knee. Well, Bikram says that, and you hear that in the script of like you need to stand and you need to lock your knee. But what they're really saying is like engage your muscles. Because I mean, to really lock your knee and to push your knee back, that's not good for your leg. And that's really bad for your joints. But that's how they cue it, and that's how they expect people to. So people, you'll see people like and I get it because if you don't tell people to like lock your knee, then I see it because I've seen it when I teach like a flow class, people's knees are bent, right? And you're like, ooh, no, like you have to straighten your leg, but you want to find that balance of saying straighten your leg, not lock your knee, but engage your muscles.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You said it didn't feel authentic, and you think it didn't feel authentic because you weren't learning it from Bikram. But when you
Yeah.
first said it didn't feel authentic, I didn't feel authentic because you know what I thought you were going to say?
What?
It wasn't coming from me. Then when you
Oh,
said Bikram, I was like, oh, interesting. Because
yeah.
I'm curious. I wonder if actually it wasn't coming from you. I don't know. I'm just curious.
Oh, I got the tingles. Well, and maybe it was like I feel throughout this yoga journey and as a teacher, I've gone through different courses and I've done like yin yoga. I've had a like Stephanie Nosko, shout out to her because like the yin yoga, trust me, if you want to take yin yoga teacher training, go to Stephanie.
Well, you're
Um,
dropping some big names here today. So there's
yeah,
some
I
amazing
know I'm
names
dropping the
out there,
big
and you're dropping
names.
some good names. Yeah.
For those in the yoga world, if you're been around for a little while,
Yeah.
the big names.
Big names.
But Stephanie is
So,
amazing.
so you
Um,
went from Hot 26 to a meditation training, like a yin training,
yeah,
basically.
yeah.
And then tell me what you learned about authenticity when you were assembling all and when you were integrating all of these yoga teacher trainings.
Well, when we first did like even with Kim, so going back to like Kim McMullen's training, she had taught us about judgment and non-judgment. And I'd always grown up with, I'm half Asian, so I joke my dad's Japanese, my mom's Ukrainian. I have the Asian dragon in my blood lineage, but then I also have the Eastern European dragon, which is just as bad. You don't want to mess with Ukraine, you know what I mean? Like you don't want to mess with Eastern European ladies. Let's just say that.
Right. Noted. You're giving us the
Regardless,
stereotype. We get it. We get it. Yeah.
right? So uh, there's been always growing up, it's like, what are people going to think about you? Like I remember even when I was in brownies, my mom was a girl guide or a brownie leader and girl guide leader. And I look at my mom sometimes after a meeting and I'd say, was I good? Because I didn't know if my behavior was quote unquote good and like if my mom would be proud of me because, I'd be a little shit running around saying stuff like no filter. And then my mom would sometimes like, I can't believe you would say that, or I can't believe you acted this way, or you weren't listening. And it's like I'm with my friends and I just want to play and we're doing fun things. And I wasn't a bad kid, but I was spastic. Right? So I was looking for that approval and I remember that from a young age. And
Mm.
so even,
Trying to figure out where
I
you
remember
fit.
at one Christmas I lost a job and I remember going to like this Christmas party and my parents like, well, let's not talk about like that you lost your job and what are people gonna think? And I'm like, well, I don't and at this point I'm like, well, I don't care. And this was before teacher training too. And I was like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, I'm kind of still embarrassed about that. I got let go. And it was the first time I'd been let go from a job and it was not a great feeling and a little embarrassing, but my parents made it like such a big deal. Like, what are people going to think about this? So maybe we shouldn't talk about this. And yeah, so when I got into this yoga teacher training, Kim said, like, people aren't going to like you. Like, there's going to be people who aren't going to um,
Resonate.
resonate with you, right? And she said, people are in their own little heads of what are people thinking about me that nobody is thinking about you. So who cares? You have to get rid of that. And it was like my big aha moment of like, oh, okay, I don't care. And it's not that I don't care, but it was liberating and freeing. So when I started doing these yoga teacher trainings and finding my authentic self, it was like, oh, I can be who I want to be. And I think it's just growing and learning through all the different teacher trainings that I've had because I've done all sorts of different ones. It's just finding pieces of here and there. And it's like, what resonates with me with this? I will take this. What will resonate with me? I will take that here. I've done a dragon dance yoga teacher training. I love it. It is like my absolute favorite. But I tell students, I'm like, this is not for everyone. You may hate it. And I will warn you, I will give you a couple weeks in advance and say, like, hey, in 2 weeks, we're going to be doing a dragon dance class and it's taking over the flow. If you like it, great. If not, don't come. And I
Gosh.
feel bad for dropping people who like I teach at Clardy because I'm like, today's a dragon dance day, and they're like, what's this? Like, it's okay. It's only coming once a month. Good luck.
So tell me what's happening with that. Like, as you let your authenticity come in, as you allow yourself to teach the stuff that you love and you're good at and resonates in you, what's happening on that physical wellness side? What's happening with the migraines as you're brewing this authenticity, as you're tapping into it and letting it come forward?
Honestly, the migraines go away, right? And I
This
think
is
that's the
this
biggest
is the
thing.
bit that I think is so freaking fascinating. Can you speak to that for me? Can you tie somehow together this idea of wellness and allowing your authentic self to show up?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think for me, it's been a journey. I don't want to say migraine free because that's not true, but I have had way less migraines in the past. Well, since I quit CPS, so it was 2019 I quit CPS. I have been in a couple other stressful jobs that haven't really felt aligned, and when that happens, like I do get the migraines, and when it is super stressful, then I get the migraines. But because I'm now doing things that I love to do, the migraines have been way less. Like
Yeah.
way less. Also, I've also taken myself off of every birth med like all that
All the
birthing
Western
medication, right? Like the birth
solutions.
prevention, right? So, I mean, growing up, I was on the pill. I had the Nuver. Like I've done anything and everything as well for like birth control. But the last few years, I've also taken myself off of that. So I'm not on birth control right now. And just, monitoring the periods, like tracking everything, tracking all the signs and symptoms of that as well. And I think it's just like being authentically myself and doing things that I love to do. And yes, there's always going to be stresses in our life. And like, there's going to be times when, like, oh, I'll have a migraine because I'm like, oh, yeah, I went to Mexico. I didn't take my electrolytes, right? So it's now just being mindful of, okay, if I'm going to a hot place, I need to drink a lot of water, but I also need to electrolyte up. And then I don't get the migraines. Or if I don't, like if I take the water, but I'm not taking electrolytes, I'm like, oh shit, here we go.
There,
Grab some
there,
electrolyte water. We'll grab some like coconut water. That's fine. I'll suffer for a little bit, but lesson learned, don't do that.
yeah. Oh, and this is the imperfectness of life, I feel,
Yeah.
is that the headache for I've always resisted in my own life calling it a migraine, although I can absolutely relate to being taken out and having to go to a room and have it be cold, dark, still, and hydrating for 24 to 36 hours. Like sometimes it's 3 days, right? I can
Yeah.
relate to that. And yet somehow I haven't. Yeah. So anyway, same deal. It's this idea of how can I align my life so that happens less? Yes. And when it does happen, can I recover quicker, not have
Mhm.
it be as debilitating? Can I notice it and start to bring in my balancing actions sooner? Can I catch it before it takes me down? Sometimes, like that's why I have them less now, is because I can catch them before they take me down. I can go, oh, like you started to talk about it, you're like, oh, tomorrow it's going to be a headache. Today it's not even a headache yet, but I can feel the starts in my body. And those yellow lights, when we start to have the wherewithal
Mhm.
to and the awareness to be able to notice those yellow lights that happen 24 hours before the headache, holy man, we become powerful because we're
Yeah.
noticing the way our body's saying, not this direction, sweetheart. And you're talking about it when you talk about, oh, I know I need water. I know I need electrolytes. I know I need sleep. I know I need to nourish myself better. Like all of the words you've just used are the ways your body's asking you to avoid, like, course correct, sweetheart, course correct.
And if you're not paying attention, then you're going to be out for a,
Yes.
and I mean, and sometimes, even though I know all these things, there's in that moment, you're just like,
I know it's a bit of a joke that saying, when you know better, you do better. I keep thinking, like, oh God, like I totally know better and I'm still doing the thing. So, it's not always the case that when you know better, you do better. Yeah.
No, but I think that's also the journey too, right? I mean, like we talk, like how you introduced me, it was like it's like the ebbs and flows and it's a journey. And, healing is never linear.
Yeah.
Healing is never linear. There's always going to be the ups and downs. And even with like trying to course correct with the migraines, like when I was working at CPS and I took time off, like I had to take time off because of the stress was so bad that the migraines were I had like pretty much a migraine for like an entire month. It was crazy.
Gosh.
And I was taking all sorts of different medication. And when you're not depressed and you're taking an antidepressant, that does stuff to your body and it makes you feel like shit. I was taking a low blood pressure medication, but I already had low blood pressure, so I felt dizzy like all the time. My sleep patterns were way crazy. Like I was sleeping, oh, during the day, I'd be up at 3 p.m. and I would be like making malas and stuff because I'm like, I don't know what to do. And it's like, it was so weird for about a month. And then work was like, well, you have to come back. And the doctor, and I talked to one of my doctors at the time, she's like, well, we tried. And I'm like, what do you mean we tried? Like, we tried 3 drugs. That's it. We
Well,
tried. And it's like, there was nothing else. And that's how I got into Reiki because Reiki was like, again, more putting your body into that parasympathetic state where you just relax. And then there is something to be said about moving energy around. And, in Chinese medicine, they call that qi. I don't know what they call it in Ayurvedic, I guess prana,
yeah.
right? And so you have the prana, the chi that gets stagnant and it just gets stuck. And depending on, the Ayurvedic, or even with like Chinese medicine, we talk about meridian lines and how things can get blocked, and we just want to open everything up, right? And then when you have things that are getting stuck in certain places, that's where we feel the emotions. Things don't move properly, and it can affect the whole body. And so when it's like, yes, I get a migraine, or yes, like I'm like super stressed, it can also affect other things in your body.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's like how I got into the Reiki, was so that I could just move stuff, not necessarily through acupressure points or acupuncture points or anything like that, but it was just like help me calm the F down.
What you're talking about, this energy movement now, this is
Yeah,
a pillar in both Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, I believe, just this idea of energy management
yeah.
and energy flow, which is prana and chi. So then you are starting to work with an energy, and energetically, a headache feels like your brain is going to explode. It's almost like there's a relief valve needed to vent something that feels like it's very much in excess. And
Mhm.
it's almost like you want to be able to just feel like this. We're going to turn this little knob and psh, you're just going to hear this volume of build up energy, like really agitating energy, just like drain out of you. And what you're learning now, you're coming to embodied practices rather than drug solutions. You're
Mhm.
coming to embodied practices like yoga and Reiki to provide you access to those vents, to those valves that allow the energy to release out of you and take you to parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
I love it.
And with the Chinese medicine, right? And as an acupuncturist, going to be an acupuncturist in like 3 years, that's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
It's like you can have gut issues, but you can also have migraine issues, and you can have, or headaches or whatever. And it's like something is building up in the head, but then it can, because the body is interrelated, it's all connected. There's probably other things going on,
Yeah.
right? And because like your headaches could be totally, we can have the same symptoms, right? You have a headache, I have a headache, but they could be, the cause or the reason for those headaches can be totally different. But we
Yes.
can use the meridian lines, or the prana lines and the energy, and through Ayurvedic or through Chinese medicine, herbs or acupressure points, we can start to open things up, which
Yeah.
then not only just releases the migraines and the headache and like and all of that pressure, but it will also help release and move whatever else is stagnant in the body, because like I said, everything's interrelated. So if there is a blockage somewhere, even like let's just say the head, and there things are not moving, right? Things are not moving up here, but then things are going to be affected below.
And your body learns how to speak to you. And
Yes.
so if it finds something that you have to respond to, so migraine is a really amazing thing, but you also said gut issues. And yeah, I'm going to say some people, it's like that IBS, like there's something happening. So your body has found a mechanism. I've even heard of people who's like, my ankles swell. Yeah, your ankles are going to swell. And if you do X, Y, Z every time your ankles swell, every time your body wants you to do X, Y, Z, and they're like, well, last time we gave them this symptom, they did X, Y, Z. So why don't we give them that symptom again? And so as you come into relationship with your body now, and your
Hmm.
body starts to give you the migraine symptom, I want you to, any of the listeners, to just put in there whatever your body's symptom is telling you and go to what you know. I
Hmm.
know that when my body gives me this symptom, this is what it has worked. This is what it might be asking for. You were able to describe perfectly dark, cold, still, hydrating. Like, yeah, I know exactly what it's asking for. As soon as your body knows that you know the answer, it uses the cue, it uses the symptom. It's like, oh, she now knows that this sensation of migraine requires dark, cold, still, hydrating. I'm going to give her the symptom. She'll go do the stuff. And then the trust starts with you and your body. And your body doesn't have to go full migraine anymore. It just goes like little blip. And if you course correct, it doesn't go full blown.
If you don't course correct, then
I
you're
mean, honestly, yeah,
then
for
it,
sure.
but saying that though, I feel like even with that, the migraines, like I said, I've had less of them, but I feel like they're not as bad. They can still be bad. And
Yeah.
there's going to be days where I'm just like, okay, right, like I clearly did not listen and I'm out for the day. But then it doesn't last as long or the symptoms aren't as terrible. I still am that person where I am again in like the vampire in hiding in the under the covers. I'm not moving. I'm not leaving the house. Like that is
And
definitely me, but
And let's also take some shame out of this too, because I
yeah.
think that we can then, we don't want to also then go to the state where, oh, then if I get a migraine, it's my own fucking fault, right?
Yes.
Because it's not always that either. Sometimes it's that the season has shifted.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's that something external to you has changed. So, a job that you once loved and was wonderful, has something's changed at that job, and that external circumstance is now different. Seasonal changes are huge. So sometimes it's like the energy that's out there in the world is really big, and your body's asking you to shift something, even though you've done nothing wrong. So we can really, in this wellness world, jump to, well, if you've got a headache, you must have, like we can get very self-judgy around our symptoms because I should know better. And if I didn't do the things that make me better, then I'm just stupid and it's my own fault. But because of nature's cycles, often at cyclical, seasonal changes, winter to spring, spring to summer, summer to fall, fall to winter, um, our body needs something different. And it's not because what we were doing is wrong. It's because what we were doing last season needs to shift to something different in the next season. So sometimes that headache or that symptom shows up just to cue, hey, shake things up here, come and pay attention. Something new is needed. You're not doing anything wrong, but this particular routine and ritual won't serve us in the next season.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's like Ayurvedic, right? Like, I mean, we move from season to season and you have to kind of change, like you change the way you eat in the say, well, you change the way we eat in the summer versus how we eat in the fall,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
with the like the summer, it's the salads and it's cooler, right? Because we're in so much heat. So we're using, again, we can go into the yin yang or the pittas and say like, hey, we're in experiencing heat, it's hotter, so we're going to eat the cooler things to cool our bodies down, right?
Yeah.
The vegetables, the yin. And then when we go into the fall, it's like things are getting colder. So we want to embrace more of those yang foods, right? So you want to eat
Farm
maybe a bit
cooked.
more meat or like the stews, right? Like it's like the
Yeah.
home, like kind of nesting back into like the harvest foods, right? The
100%.
squashes, all of that. And then when we go into winter, it's like I always joke, I'm like, I'm bear, I hibernate. So
Yeah.
it's like, so going really slow again, because we're cold, like it's colder, we want to stay warm. So
Hmm.
going kind of into those like feeling, trying to get warm, right? The yang again. And then when we go back into the spring, then the spring's like, oh, hey, new beginnings. And it's getting warmer and fresh things are happening. So it's like, okay, going back into more of the cooler foods again. So it's going through that cycle. And when we are in too much excess of something or not enough of something, then our bodies start to react because they're like, we're out of balance. And it's
Yeah.
again going into that, finding that balance and then giving ourselves grace because there's always going to be times when, like you said, the external things are going to happen where the job, we might lose a job out of our control. We might, things can get stressful. Like I know with school now, it's like, okay, I'm in school for 3 years. This is going to be stressful. I already know that. And yeah, there probably will be a few more migraines this in the next 3 years. But because I'm doing acupuncture, I get to see cool my fellow students be like, all right,
Help you come
pin
into
me
balance.
everywhere. I will be the little pincushion. Just help me release any of the tension and the stress that's going to happen. And I think it's also just being prepared for that too, right? And being like, I give myself the grace and I will try to do as much as I can, but at the end of the day too, um, things are always going to happen. And as a student, or even just anybody listening, we go through different ways of eating when we're stressed out, and we're not. I always like to say I eat my feelings, so I'm not, not eating necessarily as healthy as maybe I should be at times. But then again, your bodies feel that, and then we react to that because we get the inflammation, or the body's like, no, I don't like this, right? Or
Well,
it's too much,
and the
too much or
balance.
too less. Yeah,
Yeah.
balance and grace, balance and grace.
The way you're speaking about that right now, that idea of grace, because I think that's a huge piece of it, is that as human beings, we will fall in and out of balance. Like there's a word vitiate, and it's
Mhm.
sort of like you think of yourself as standing on the top of this pillar, but you sort of you tip out of balance, and then you hope that you can just sort of tap yourself back into balance. But then it's like a pendulum. It's like you swing a little bit too far the other way, and then you tap yourself back in and you swing a little bit too far the other way. But what if we accepted that as a piece of being human instead of criticizing and judging ourselves for an inability to stay perfectly balanced throughout our lives? Because that ability doesn't exist in any human being. And so there's that word grace that you keep using. And I love it because it's like, why don't we just allow the fact that we're humans and we're going to constantly be tipping in and out of balance for internal and external, you know, causes,
Mhm.
stimulus, and not judge ourselves for something that's impossible.
Mhm.
Staying in balance isn't possible, but our ability to, like you said, come back to it or through it with grace, there is our superpower. And the
Yeah.
more aware we can be of what our messages that our body's telling us, the more we can flow through that balance point or not fall as far away from it. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, as you're talking, I was just getting this visual, and an instructor, we were talking about this yesterday. So like when you pass, like that you're gonna be in like that balance of the yin and yang. But she said like the yin and yang, you're always gonna have waves. So it's a matter of how big these waves are, right? If we're in like big yang, it's gonna be the big wave. If we're like in yin, we're gonna go downwards. So it's like, how big do the waves want to be? We want it like, it's not necessarily going to be calm. It's not smooth sailing all the time, right? Like that's not life. Life is never quite smooth sailing. We can have ease, and
Yeah.
we can have, we could surf a little bit, but like how big do we want the waves? Do we want, it's not, ideally, we would like to have just like the straight ocean, but that ocean is, there's always going to be ripples. So it's how big are these little waves? Like, are they going to be like this little big? That's not bad. We can
Yeah.
flow through that. Or is it going to be the big ups and downs? And sometimes life is that way, right? Like things happen, situations happen out of our control. The big waves come, the big waves go down. They make us, we're riding that roller coaster. But then there's going to be times when it's a little bit flatter. And
Mhm.
how can we ride those as well? And knowing that there's going to be big waves, there's going to be small waves, and then it's just going to be like, let's just ride this little wave.
So, can you speak to that for me? Can you speak to how these different healing modalities that you're in, you've embodied, you're learning still, how they weave together to influence how you move through those waves?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think everything that I am doing, like it is movement. It's movement of like my business, I call it connecting with Corinne. And I connect because it's through the mind, body, and soul connection. And I mean, you can call soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, or energy, but the whole idea is like I'm connecting myself through movement, through yoga, dance, the fitness classes, all of that stuff. But then you connect your mind, because you have to have that mind body connection, right? With anything you do. And then it's like that soul or the spirit of like what brings joy. what brings happiness to my life, like, or peace or calmness, right? So the yoga can be fun, but it can also bring up shit, especially if you like are storing something in a pose and you're going into like, say, I don't know, like a camel pose. So many people hate camel. And I'm like, why do you hate camel? Like, oh, because you're exposing your heart, right? Like this is yang. It's like you're opening things. And it's like we don't want to open our hearts. We want to close. We want a thick shell, right? But by opening, we're opening something, it's exposing, it's vulnerable, so people can be upset about that. And it's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay, right? Like there's no, again, no judgment on that. And I think it's about that whole mind body connection of how do I connect myself? How do I connect back to myself? And, being that authentic person and feeling just everything in my body. Because when we're in trauma, you know, we disconnect. And it
Mhm.
doesn't matter what kind of trauma. It could be big T trauma, little T trauma. It can just be even an injury, right? Like tore my ACL last summer. I had surgery from it. Let me tell you, my body has hated. My body, like my parasympathetic nervous system has not liked this surgery at all. It's been 3 months since, and the body's still like slowly getting there, and muscles have been fighting me. It's been an interesting journey on that sense, but I'm seeing it. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Sympathetic parasympathetic nervous system's not happy right now, and the sympathetic nervous system's doing some interesting things. And the mind body connection, like, key mind, I'm telling my muscles to do something. Muscles will do it to some extent, but then they're like, yeah, we're good now. We're spastic. We're not gonna we need some more, like, just give us a little bit more love. And so it's just, like I said, it's a journey, right? It's nothing is going to be linear. It's going to be the waves. And it's like, okay, how do we ride the waves? How do we give ourselves that patience and that grace? Because patience is so hard, because we want that fast, the 30-day diet. We want like everything fast. We want everything, I want to heal today. And realistically, that doesn't necessarily happen. And there's always going to be like, I move 10 steps forward and 10 steps back, right?
Yeah.
But the whole
Nine, only
idea
nine
is,
steps back.
yeah, right.
10
And then
forward,
you
nine
move
back.
10 steps forward again. And I joke that, like, when I like all the stupid things that I do, like rugby, obstacle course races, any of that kind of stuff, moves me 10 steps back. And then I do a little bit of yoga and that moves me a little bit forward. And then I do something again, like working out, then you're tight and sore and all that stuff. And then you move 5 steps back. And then the yoga brings me a little bit more forward. So it's just finding that grace, finding that, like we said, we've talked about balance and just connecting, getting connected back,
Oh
and
God.
just doing those fun things, and just knowing that's like, people love running, and that's amazing because they move their body, right? They're learning to breathe. Then they can go into almost a meditative state by running, and they're
Mhm.
doing something that they love.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just finding that in through the movement, through yoga, through Reiki, just finding that calmness, but then knowing that you're connecting your body and mind and your spirit all together. So sorry, that was on a tangent, but that's really what.
But this is the thing is that it's really not the tangent. It is the modality, it is the paradigm of healing that is missing from our current structure. Because the current structure has all the yang that you want, right? We can do the surgeries, we can prescribe the drugs, we can put you on the pills, but it's missing that what you keep saying, the mind-body connection, the mind-body-spirit connection. It's missing the idea of grace. It's missing the idea of balance. It's missing the idea of joy. It's missing the idea of authenticity. And these are qualities that hang out firmly on the yin side, on the feminine side. And until we start saying, hey, all these qualitative things that we can't quite put a finger on, they are essential. They are not just a tangent to your healing, they are essential. And they need to be held in equal regard to that which our scientific community has figured out. The stuff
Mhm.
that we haven't quite figured out is as essential. Yeah.
Well, and I think, Western medicine just misses that point. And with the Eastern medicine, regardless if it's Ayurvedic or if it's Chinese medicine, right? That the Chinese medicine has been around like thousands and thousands of years, and they've had these like discussions and ideas because they've watched, they've observed through the planets, the stars, people, nature, and have said like this is the essence, right? Energy is the essence, but also like what is happening with our bodies and how are we reacting to nature? And it's the same with Ayurvedic, right? Like they've in India, they looked at this stuff and they looked from nature and they looked from all the things that were happening around them and they wrote about this stuff.
Yeah.
And
For 5,000 years.
yeah, for thousands of years, right? And they can say like, I don't know about Ayurvedic, but I know like with Chinese medicine, we just learned this today, like, there were people that were saying like these people, like there were whoever, like these I don't want to say prophets, but almost like prophets, I guess, that they were living for a very long time, saying like hundreds of years. And it's like, is that possible? Can people live over like, we see people living over 100 years. Like there are some people, right? Like 110, what's the oldest person? Maybe 120 years old.
Mhm.
But, you know, first off, it could be a mindset, but also it's like it could be possible. It could be possible that there are these people who lived for hundreds of years because they knew how to breathe properly, right? You hear about these yogis who like hide in these caves like thousands of years ago and they would just like meditate and they would hardly breathe and they were almost, I don't want to say dead, but they were like almost in a hibernation state, right? And they were able to live for so long. And there's scriptures and writings about all of this. So I don't know, to say that like we could probably live a lot longer than what we are doing,
So
but
tell me now, like just to wrap things up,
sure.
tell me how you honor that qualitative stuff. You honor that embodied knowledge that isn't necessarily quantifiable, that yin side of you. How do you honor that in your day to day?
I listen to my body. And
Yeah.
honestly, there's days like, for this healing journey of after coming out of surgery, I joked I've been a cat for like 3 months, where I wake up, I eat, I sleep, I'm tired, I move around a little bit, that exhausts me, and then I sleep some more. So and finding that grace too, because like there was a part of me where I'm like, oh man, and you tell yourself these stories, I'm lazy, like I should be doing more, like I should. And it's like, no. I am going to be listening to my body. I have this time. Um, if that means like I get up, I go for a little walk, and then I'm exhausted, then obviously my body is telling me like I need to rest some more. And it's just allowing that. And it's like, okay, now I'm in more of a yang state where like I have structure. I'm going to school, going back to work, those kind of things. And it's like, okay, but I still need to give myself that yin time,
Mhm.
right? So maybe going to bed a little bit earlier, creating a little bit more structure in the bedtime routine, now that I've got a little bit more structure, it's like, okay, what else can I do? Like, I don't want to go over too young, right?
Yeah.
I think I was a little bit more excessive in yin for a little
Yeah.
bit, but I think that was part of my healing journey, was I needed to do that. My body needed that for the healing process because it went through so much trauma. And now it's like, okay, I'm now in the yang because like new things are happening in my life and that's exciting. But it's like, I know if I go over access and yang, then things are going to happen. The migraines might start again, right? So it's like finding that, like we talked about, this balance and just listening to the body and being like, okay, if I'm really tired, or I mean, I joked last year because I did a different schooling and I was super stressed out. But I always joke like in September, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hibernate. Like, I'm not talking to anyone in my summertime. Like I'm out, I'm I don't want to say partying, but I'm out more social, doing all those kind of things. Now that this fall's happening, like I said, I'm a bear. I start to hibernate. I pull inwards. So and hermit a little bit more and embracing that and being okay with that and saying like, okay, I saw all my friends end of September. I'm hardly going to talk to you guys. I will see you in January when we start other things. But, from pretty much October onwards, that's when I'm going to be like focusing on the school, the studying, the inward stuff that I need to do. And knowing that that's part of my cycle and just embracing that. So that's how I kind of have learned about myself, but you have to learn about yourself like that, right? I've done personality tests, I've done all sorts of things, astrology, the numerology, like all of that, like human design, right? You learn all of this stuff and then you're just like, okay, this makes sense. And this is who I am and embrace that.
I say that you need to know you to heal you.
Yes.
You are the common denominator. And what you're talking about is that you're just having a very accurate response to your own messages. And I think the word responsibility can be used here because you have a good response ability to your own body.
Mhm.
And you know how to respond when your ability to offer it something that's accurate and balanced and grace and with grace is higher as you continue to just listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. Corinne, is there anywhere that people can follow you, watch what you're doing, join in on some of the dragon dance classes that you offer?
Yeah, so I am happy to say that I'm teaching again at Killarney in Calgary. So it's the Killarney Pool in the city of Calgary. So I teach on Friday nights. I start around 5-ish. It's a weird, like they're weird times, so you'll have to look on the Calgary website, but it's around 5. I start it's called Dance Yourself Fit. It goes till about 6, and then from 6 to 7, I'm teaching a yoga class. So I think it's called the mind body class, and then every other Friday I think starting on the 12th, yeah, the 12th, I will teach a deep water workout class. And so there's another instructor who teaches, so there's always going to be the deep water workout class. It's around like I think 7:10 or so, 7:15, I can't remember. But anyway, it's in that time frame and it's about 50 minutes. And so another instructor and I we just teach it off. So there's always a class going on, but you'll get me every other Friday and then you'll get the other instructor every other Friday. So
So
that's what
cool.
I'm doing. You can find me, I have couple Instagrams. So you can find me at Connecting with Corinne on Instagram. I also have my podcast, Connecting with Corinne Podcast. You can find that on Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you want to listen to the podcast. So I'm actually going to have Jill on in a couple of weeks, which is super exciting. So I will be sharing all of that as well and tagging Jill in everything. So if you're following Sister Science, you will see all the tags for that podcast in a couple weeks. But yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. I have a website connecting with Corinne. So the Corinne is Corinne, so one R, two N's.
What are two ends? Huh.
And an E
Thank
at the
you.
end.
Yeah, I feel like these kinds of conversations are really important because we're no longer trying to tell people that there's 5 steps to your healing or that there's a linear path or that we've cracked the solution and you need to apply it to you. I think it's really important for people to hear the conversation happen where it's like, actually, a lot of this is really freaking personal. And a lot of it has to do with you listening and knowing and trusting and following your cues, your body's messages. And I really appreciate the way you were able to bring some vocabulary through your stories and messages here today to help shed light on a process that needs to be both yin and yang.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I just think that, when we talk about this stuff, everyone's going to be different,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's just the biggest thing. It's like, regardless of what we see on Instagram, the food diets, right? Like, I won't even get into all the things, but we want the quick fixes, and the healing journey isn't a quick fix
Yeah.
because there's so much that goes on with it, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't even, I mean, we can, like, this could be a whole nother episode, but, at the end of the day, it's just giving yourself that patience, that grace, knowing that just listen to your body and listen to yourself and listening to, I'm sure with Sacred Science, or sorry, Sister Science, getting all my words confused, but with Sister Science, you talk about the intuition and trusting ourselves and finding that knowing and listening. right?
Yeah.
Because I think oh, well, what I feel may not, like, you're like, oh, I'm totally second guessing this. The expert must know. No, because the expert's going to give you the blanket, right? The blanket of this could work for everyone. It's not going to necessarily work for you. Not all diets work for everyone. What works for one person doesn't necessarily work for the other person. So I think it's, if you want, try it, but knowing that if it doesn't work, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not going to work for everyone. And just before we wrap up, I know, like, you talked about like, I'm just thinking here of, like, even when we talk about healing and healing with anything, right? In this like holistic world, when people talk about affirmations too and giving ourselves that grace, it's like affirmations can work for some people, and that's fantastic. It might not work for you, and that's okay. So we don't want to have that toxic healing either,
Yeah.
of giving ourselves, like, blaming ourselves or being like, oh, this isn't going to work for me. Like, someone can cure cancer from just affirmations. Fantastic. Will it work for everyone? Not necessarily. Does that
Yeah.
make me a bad person? Not
No.
necessarily. We're all on a different journey. So just, again, knowing that and just listening to your body. And if it doesn't feel good or somebody suggests something, you're like, I don't think that resonates with me. Trust that. So.
Thanks for offering us a story of balance and grace today.
You're welcome. Welcome.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, Jill.